Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a monster analysis on Treetopog. Treetopog lived a quiet and peaceful life in the jungle until an explorer captured and sold him to the Bestiarium exhibition center. He was picked on by kids for years, but one day he managed to break his chains and he escaped. His dream is to return to the jungle. And so Treetopog is the newest and latest nature legendary monster, and like many of the new monsters coming out, they are quite amazing, quite fascinating in terms of their traits, their stats, and their skills. And seriously, all of these new monsters being released, they have, like the War Masters have, two traits. They have a main trait, which is like a hardened, tough, etc. And then they have some sort of status caster. And in this case, we'll get into it. This monster's status caster is quite amazing. His stats are quite amazing. Everything about this monster is pretty darn cool. So let's start off with his power. 3476 in the nature category. It actually is quite high. It is actually the 6th highest power stat in the nature category. But that's not even where he shines. Where he truly shines is his life stat, 43,128. This is the 2nd highest life stat in the nature category, second only to Fatted, who has a life stat of 45k. However, once we talk about his trait, you might argue that this monster just takes the top spot. And even overall in the whole entire game, he's tied for 2nd place. Recently Francine Frank, the team race monster, was released, who also has a life stat of 43,128. So Treetopog and Francine Frank, they're tied for 2nd place, Fatted is in 1st place, but one thing this monster has that none of the other tanks have is an incredible speed stat, 3454. It's incredible in terms to other tanks, or with regards to other tanks. Fatted has a speed stat of 3069, Francine Frank 3157, and other monsters like Agursis 2926, Okiawa 3157, Tankarion 3091, Crowton 3003. Tanks tend to be very slow, so this speed stat is actually quite fast. The only other tank that rivals him is Inquisitor Fullman, who has the exact same speed stat, but a life stat of 42,223. So Treetopog beats him slightly. Actually, Inquisitor Fullman is probably one of the more better tanks you can compare with this monster, but again, he's also one of the newer monsters. And that's because of the status caster. This monster gives it's a status caster 50% life shield. So you start the game with a 50% life shield. This is why I'm saying Inquisitor Fullman is probably the best comparison to this monster. They have similar stats and they have similar traits. But one place this monster beats Inquisitor Fullman is the relic slots. This monster can hold double shields, whereas Inquisitor Fullman can only hold one shield. I think his is shield and armor. So double shield means double tenacity shield, means it is super hard to take down this monster and his team. Double tenacity on top of that 50% life shield, what more can you ask for? I mean, come on, he has a speed that is actually going to allow him to get turns in. And then considering that you can partner up this monster with one of the War Masters that can give immunity to torture effects, whether permanent or status caster, like, oh my gosh, tanks are really stepping it up. With that being said, as I always say when it comes to tanks, I'm pretty biased against tanks, but I actually love this monster a lot, just like how I love Inquisitor Fullman. And who do I like more? Right now, I'm actually gravitating towards Treetopog. Like, I am really amazed by this monster. So with that being said, let's go on to his skills. His ultimate attack, Raining Toxins, deals heavy nature damage to enemies. It's a poison and a total blind. I love the AoE total blind. Poison on top of that, the damage output could be whatever, it could have been 0. I'm fine with that. It's really that total blind that I love. Pretty good ultimate for this monster. Let's keep on going. Skills group 1, Blinding Change, applies a cute little minor blind. No reason to run that. Let's keep on going. Sapping Bite, 50% chance for guard down and blind. Protective Shell applies a 33% shield to itself. None of skills group 1 is really worth running in my opinion, so let's move on over to skills group 2. Metamorphic Defense applies a 50% life shield, applies regeneration to itself, requires cooldown. Medium Shield, meaning 50%, life regeneration for the next 3 turns, which will recover your HP by 20%, 26 stamina cost, and a high fortune cooldown. Pretty straightforward skill. If you ever get possessed, obviously this skill comes in handy because there's a chance you could use this skill. Even if you're not possessed, just the fact that you give yourself a shield and life regen, that's amazing. Even if you are on the brink of death, that 50% life shield, combined with this monster's tanky life, I think it's enough to make you survive. And then the fact that you're going to be regenerating your life, keep in mind he has a pretty fast speed, so it's not like other tanks where even if you set up a life regen, it's probably like 4 or 5 turns before you get a turn in. No, this monster is going to be getting a turn in, especially if you give him like a single speed rune. Let's keep on going. Venom. This skill was interesting. I wasn't expecting this. Deals massive nature damage to one enemy, applies poison, and removes shield from one enemy. I love the removing shield aspect. I think if you're going up against monsters that can put up shields, and there are a ton of monsters that can do that nowadays, this is a great skill to run. 65 damage is also very powerful. Keep in mind, he does have a pretty high power output, so maybe you're thinking you want to run this skill and rainbow build him. You could potentially do that. I think I'm going to go against the rainbow build for this monster. But yeah, you do have a strong 65 damage spammable skill on a 28 stamina cost, which could especially come in handy if you're facing monsters that can do cooldowns activated, especially because nowadays just about any single element you face or any single team wars you're in, you're probably going to be facing some sort of enemy that can activate cooldowns, whether on a single enemy or on your whole entire team. And if you're not running any zero cooldown skills, well then your monsters are extremely vulnerable, especially if the enemy has a speed advantage, which when they're attackers, they pretty much always have the speed advantage. Even if they don't outspeed you, they can activate their Rune Guardian and then maybe outspeed you. So this skill might be worth running just for the fact that it's a low cooldown and the high damage output, the poison, the removing shields really doesn't hurt. Crippling Pincers is your next skill, deals heavy special damage to one enemy, applies guard down and blind. Guard down makes it so your attacks will always hit. Whether you're blinded, whether you're dazed, doesn't matter, your attacks is always going to land on the enemy team. And on top of that, it also blinds, which is a nice little touch. It reduces the enemy damage attack, or the chance of landing their attack. So your attacks will always land, but their attacks may miss. They're actually going to be missing more often than they land. Pretty darn nice. Let's move on over to skills group 3. Dominating Defense. Applies taunt to itself, applies a 50% shield, and damage mirror to itself. Requires cooldown. I have always wanted skills that do taunts and damage mirror. Because what's the point of doing taunts if you can't reflect any damage back to the opponent? Well, with this skill, yeah, it does that. However, it also does give you a minor shield, a medium shield, and the thing is, when you have some sort of shield, you're not going to be reflecting any damage. Because you see, in order to actually reflect damage, you need to take damage. And when you have a shield, it absorbs the damage. So this skill, I think it pretty much boils back down to just being a basic taunt skill. Because I think the majority of the time, considering you're so tanky, you're not going to be reflecting anything, especially since the damage mirror only lasts for one turn. Nonetheless, great skill to have on a tank. Moving on, Mutated Toxins. Actually, let's go back to this. I am waiting for the day where Social Point release a monster that can even absorb AoEs. Like, I'd be so down if a tank got released that can absorb AoEs, and instead of, like, let's say the AoE deals 1,000 damage to all of your monsters, if your tank could just absorb the 3,000 damage, I would be so down for that. It would be amazing, as opposed to your other teammates still getting damage. So Social Point, if you're watching this, make that happen. Let's move on. Mutated Toxin deals moderate nature damage to enemies, applies poison and removes shields from all enemies. Great skill, definitely worth running. 40 damage AoE, quite powerful, 36 stamina cost, 3 turn cooldown. Yes, be sure to run this skill. Venomous Predator deals moderate nature damage, guard down to everyone, blind to everyone. Great skill, be sure to run it. So run all of skills group 3, I would say, and also run Metamorphic Defense. And I would say run this if you're not doing the rainbow build. If you're going to go the rainbow build route, then you do want to run Venom. But again, if you're doing skills group 3 and Metamorphic Defense, I'm thinking you might want to do a single speed, a single life, maybe a team life, maybe 2 team life and a single speed, maybe a team speed, a single life, and a team life, maybe a single life, 2 team speed. There's different ways you can go with this rune setup, but definitely give this monster at least 1 single life, and I would say a single speed. I actually would, just so you can utilize some of these skills. I think the majority of the time, you're going to want to start off with Venomous Predator. Even more than Dominating Defense, I think Venomous Predator is the #1 thing you do. You activate that guard down to land all of your attacks, and you activate the blind to reduce the enemy landing attacks against you. And then for your second turn, well, you're probably going to do Mutated Toxins to apply the poison to start getting rid of, well, it also reduces their damage output by 90%, and it also starts taking away 10% of their life. It removes any shield if they have any. Or you could probably do Dominating Defense to get that taunt to get all single hits towards you to protect your other allies. That's one thing you can do. Metamorphic Defense, I don't think is a skill you'll be running that often. The regen is nice, the life shield is nice, but I think most players would probably want to use Dominating Defense before they do a Metamorphic Defense. Yeah, the regeneration is super nice, but I think the taunt just, it comes in handy way more than the regen. Which is why if you're wanting to, you could just run Venom over Metamorphic Defense. And I guess even if you're not doing the Rainbow build, if you're doing the Rainbow build again, for sure run Venom. You want to capitalize on that 65 damage, because that is something you're probably going to want to do on turn number 2. Or maybe even, that might even be your first attack if it can potentially knock out an enemy monster after your attacker has done his own AoE. I mean, it just really depends, right? Because then you also have a 40 damage AoE that poisons that you can work with. So very, very fascinating tank. Again, you can rainbow build them, you can go single life and some combination with speed or team speed. Very, very amazing monster in my personal opinion. You basically have 5 skills to choose from: Venom, Metamorphic Defense, Dominating Defense, Toxins, and Venomous Predator. So I'm curious, if you guys had this monster, what would you do with this monster? How would you ruin him? What skills would you give him? Why would you give him one skill set over another skill? How would you ruin him, and why would you ruin him that way? I think I forgot to mention this monster is in the Sea book and in the Dragon book. Again, some notable things: incredible life, second highest in the whole entire game. However, his status caster pretty much, like, yeah, it's not increased life, but it's a 50% life shield. So add an extra 20k on that. He starts the game off essentially with 60k hit points. No other monster can do that. And on top of that, he has the Harden trait. Again, double tenacity. God, this monster can start the game with over like 100,000 hit points at level 100. It's incredible. And then the skills. An extra 50% shield here, reducing damage output with toxins by 19% on the enemy team or 20%, adding guard down on the enemy team and preventing their attacks from landing against you. A 0 cooldown 65 powerful damage attack that poisons and removes shields. This monster, I'm super biased against tanks, and the fact that I'm hyping him up a lot, I really do like him. I think in the right team combination, again with the War Masters, being able to stop torture effects from landing on him, like, he can really help you beat some tough bases. I truly, truly believe it. Like, there's just so many amazing things you can do. But that's going to be it. I'm going to stop talking. I really want to hear from you guys, so let me know in the comments below. With that being said, I'm Armor Gaming. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.